Tonight, are care homes facing a financial tipping point? A scheme to help them pay for millions of pounds of PPE is coming to an end, leaving some homes worried for their future.
Well, I think this is probably another crisis within a crisis. You're looking at the financial impact that this could have, and the withdrawal of funding proves business critical.
Also making the headlines is public transport in Scotland's biggest city fit for purpose. Bus, train and taxi users say reduced and unreliable services are leaving them stranded.
In sport, Aaron Ramsey is set to make his first start for Rangers in the Scottish Cup.
And Bat Out of Hell back on stage in tribute to Meat Loaf. I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6.
Good evening. COVID cases may be falling, but care homes say they're heading for yet another crisis. A Lifeline PPE reimbursement scheme is due to end next month, and care providers say it's leaving them with a gaping hole in their budget.
To date, the Scottish Government has repaid more than £17 million spent on personal protective equipment for staff. And while the cash may end, the need for masks and other equipment to keep residents in care homes has not. Political reporter Laura Alderman has been finding out more.
For staff at this care home in Greenock, this is a fundamental part of their daily routine. They go through around 200 masks a day, still cautious of coronavirus and the risks it poses to the most vulnerable.
Sometimes think we're this parallel world that we live in, that society is starting to get back on with normal living, but we're not.
During the pandemic, their PPE bill rose from £15,000 to £75,000 a year. It was being reimbursed by the Scottish Government, but next month this fund is set to close, meaning they'd be forced to pick up the bill.
If we're still expected to use this level of PPE, past March, then that we're going to really struggle with that. I just don't like to think about it. We want to keep going, keep doing what we're doing, and I worry about the future.
At home, carers can change their PPE up to 20 times a day. Some providers have seen their costs rise by £50,000 a year.
When you look at the increase in the costs, that's costs that could be applied to hiring more frontline staff. I think this is probably another crisis within a crisis. You're looking at the financial impact that this could have, and the withdrawal of funding proves business critical. £50,000 is a lot of money for any organisation.
In some ways, the timing of this couldn't be any worse. This is the time of year when care providers set their budget for the year ahead, and if they can't factor in major costs like PPE, it raises massive challenges for the sustainability of homes like this one.
More than 30 care homes have closed in the last 2 years, and industry leaders warn without a long-term funding solution, many more could fail.
What we're seeing is that not all care homes or care at home providers have been paid the monies that they should have been paid by government. And also going forward, if a care home or a home care provider doesn't know if they're going to get paid for the service that they are contracted to deliver by the government, then they are no longer viable.
Did you want some tea? Yes, please.
As most of us begin to look beyond COVID, social care may be the last sector to return to normal. But facing a financial tipping point, the question is how many can hold out until then? Laura Alderman, STV News.
It's the worst it's ever been. That's what people who rely on public transport in Glasgow are saying about the services. Train timetables that were scaled back because of the pandemic are not going to be fully reinstated, causing issues for commuters and those who live outside the city centre.
In a further blow, First Bus has confirmed it suspended its night service across Glasgow, citing driver shortages. Hospitality workers say this leaves them with few options to get home safely, as Polly Bartlett reports.
Home time in Glasgow at the end of the working day. And a dash to make the train.
Train after train's been cancelled or delayed. You know, your face pressed up against the train window. So, to be honest, I'm not really a big fan of, this that's happening now. And I'm basically trying to get myself back onto the road as well so I can cut this part of travel out my life altogether.
Sean's feelings are echoed by others living in the area. Leanne says the public transport options in Drumchapel leave her unable to go out after 6 p.m.
This has got to be the worst it's ever been. I've never been so angry at public transport, especially for my wee girl. She's such an outdoorsy girl. She loves snuggling up, putting a hat and scarf on and going off to Glasgow Green for a wee while, or just, go on adventures, but we've not been able to. And really that's limiting my life, it's limiting her life, and that's not fair.
Rush hour in the city centre, and it's a similar picture.
As key workers in town, it's been a bit of a nightmare to get to and from work since COVID, especially. Even now, I don't really feel like things have improved much.
They're relatively regular, which is decent. Overcrowding's a big issue, obviously with COVID and the general paranoia that goes with that.
No, they're certainly not regular enough on certain routes. That's absolutely for sure, and by certain times in the evening as well. If people are working late, they have to get home.
This year, train passengers were hit by the biggest price increase in nearly a decade, with fares rising by 3.8%. And the issues extend beyond the railways. First Bus is already operating on a reduced timetable and now has suspended its night service across the city due to a staffing shortage. Now it's late, it's dark and it's bitterly cold. Not the kind of night where you want to find yourself having issues getting home. But that is the reality for people working in bars and in restaurants, and some of those enjoying Glasgow's nightlife after so long in lockdown.
These aren't kind of wee issues that are just not being addressed. There needs to be a real overhaul in transport in Glasgow. I think the subway shuts at 6 o'clock on a Sunday. Where's the practicality in that? There's not enough cheap and affordable options for hospitality staff, who are some of the most underpaid in society, to get home safely.
So it can be quite isolating, especially when the buses cut down, when they're every hour compared to every half hour.
The last train's maybe 11:30.
Aye.
And
half 11 at night.
Tonight it's probably 12:15, but at the weekends
we're going to Bongo's Bingo tonight.
Well, you guys go and enjoy.
Thank you. Have a lovely night.
I don't know how we're going to get home, but we'll find a way. Thank you.
Well, Polly, hopefully they did get home okay. Now, there might not have been an easy solution for them, but is there an easy solution for the city?
To be honest, John, the answer is no. And as more and more people return to the office, that's more and more cars on the road as people simply turn their back on public transport.
And of course, this is in the city that hosted COP26, the climate conference.
You're right, John. Glasgow won't meet its low emission zone targets if the only easy way around the city is by car. Today I asked ScotRail, First Bus and the Transport Minister for an interview, but I was told that no one was available for a comment. The Scottish Government did say, though, that they are monitoring the situation closely and that they have provided £210 million worth of financial support to bus companies during the pandemic. First Bus also said they hope to reinstate their night bus service in the coming weeks. But there was a real sense of frustration across the city yesterday, and of course these are issues that are affecting people now, so I'm not sure those responses really go far enough.
Polly, thank you.
OK, let's take a look at other stories across Scotland. And after more than 40 years, a man is to stand trial accused of murdering his former wife. Dr Brenda Page was found dead in her flat in Aberdeen in 1978. Christopher Harrison, who's 81, denies the charges against him.
New rules around travelling into Scotland have come into force. As of this morning, passengers who are fully vaccinated can now simply show proof of vaccination and a locator form upon entry. However, those who have not been fully vaccinated will still have to complete a PCR test 2 days before and after travelling. The change has come as a welcome relief to those in the travel sector.
The announcements this week are a really great start for January for the travel industry, both in terms of travel businesses and also with personal travel plans. So there's no doubt there's still a long road to recovery for the full industry, but there's definitely green shoots and there's a lot of strong optimism that travel can finally have some consistency and continue on its path to recovery.
A 4-week consultation to shape the future of Glasgow's George Square is now underway. The survey, which is available online, asks participants what they want to see in the area. People will be asked whether private vehicles should be banned, if a water feature should be included, and for their thoughts on monuments and statues.
Whisky exports grew to £4.5 billion last year. The latest figures show a recovery from 2020 when the industry was hit by the pandemic. But exports remained around £400 million down on figures for 2019. The USA was the most valuable market last year.
We're on the road to recovery, but there's still a way to go yet. So it is encouraging to see exports rebound this year. But we're still down on 2019 pre-pandemic figures.
Now, we feel forgotten about. That's the message from those with cerebral palsy in Scotland who say their healthcare needs are not being met. It's a lifelong disability from birth, but those moving to adult services say they're not getting the same level of support. Now, a charity want the Scottish Government to give adults with the condition the right to specialist annual review. Vanessa Taff reports.
We're going to stand. 1, 2, 3, and up. Well done.
A helping hand from his mum. 20-year-old Brett from Dundee has diaplegic cerebral palsy. He's unable to walk and has challenges with his sight and hearing. It's down to his mother Janice to provide around-the-clock care.
I didn't really realise there wouldn't be any other form of help for him, as in other services. He's always required help, certainly when he was younger. He was a lot easier to manage, he was lighter. For myself, it's just a daily challenge. Brett needs everything done for him from the minute he wakes up.
As soon as Brett left school, his specialist care stopped.
There is nothing in place, which was absolutely a biggest shock. Transition is supposed to come about 2 years before they leave school. We've had really very little in transition. Obviously, when COVID started, he left school very early in the March, and that's been it really. And we really haven't seen services at all. We had a couple of visits from physiotherapy with little or no hands-on at all.
It's the lack of hands-on care and physiotherapy that's also a problem for 69-year-old Jackie.
Before lockdown, I went to the gym. I was doing that to keep fit, but none of these things give me exercises to my legs. They're stiffer than I've ever, known, and the spasms are worse at night now. Do you know what I mean? Because people don't realise that when you've got constant spasms, it can be sore as well.
1 out of every 150 children born in Scotland will be diagnosed with cerebral palsy, and no two people with the condition will experience it in the same way. Now, experts and campaigners alike want more data to be gathered on the condition and for the decision makers to improve access to healthcare.
What we find so often is that people out with here present to services with an issue and they are told that is because of your cerebral palsy, there is nothing that can be done. Well, that's not always the case, and actually denying people access to services because they have a long-term condition is an abomination.
For Janice and Brett, the transition from child to adult care has left them feeling behind.
For me, it's quite a depressing phase, because where do we go? Is this going to be him just not getting anything now? I think there's no guidelines nor are there any pathways for him to follow as a young, and he's only 20. So is he going to just continually just be neglected? Because that's how we feel, a bit neglected.
The Scottish Government say they're committed to ensuring access to care and support for people with cerebral palsy. But for Janice and Brett, they have no option but to carry on. Vanessa Taff, STV News.
Pollok Country Park, Stables and Sawmill in Glasgow will be turned back into a visitor attraction with more than £13 million from the UK Government. It will feature a world-class heritage centre celebrating the Clydesdale horses, which were once a big attraction at the park. Ollie Dickinson has the details.
Mr. Stephen, I must say this is a lot bonnier than a tractor, but why do you use horses to work with rather than a tractor?
Well, up here, good lots of steins and Granbury rough game.
For centuries, the Clydesdale horse has been front and centre of Scotland's countryside and beyond, with its power, temperament and reliability making it the perfect worker.
It was developed in the Clyde Valley, but it moved right throughout Scotland, and it was, 100 years or more, it was the working animal. Even for the streets of Glasgow, the Clydesdale horse, with its tremendous good leg action and things, was the beast of burden, and Glasgow couldn't have functioned without it, never mind the farm.
And for years the horses were a major attraction here at Pollok Country Park, but the barns and stables that once housed them fell into disrepair and the horses were moved away. However, UK government cash means that's about to change.
As you can see today, some of the buildings are in a bit of a sorry state. To get them back to their former glory, to tell the story of the industrial heritage, to have the Clydesdale horses back, I think will be a huge boost for Glasgow and Scotland as a whole.
The £13 million worth of investment here at Pollok Country Park will go into renovating the stables, but it'll also ensure that the legacy and history of the fantastic Clydesdale horse is celebrated for years to come. Isn't that right? Good girl.
And we're very keen to have local community spaces, so lots of local groups using the different spaces in the stables. We're keen obviously to have the Clydesdale horses back, and we're also going to showcase renewable energy generation on the weir as well. So showcasing that and telling people how that happens and how renewable energy is generated and provided to the sawmill and stables.
The works will be completed by 2024, meaning that these magnificent horses will soon be able to call the stables home once again. Ollie Dickinson, STV News, Glasgow.
Impressive creatures. Now Rahman's here with the sport, and I can't wait to hear what you're going to tell me about the football.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sport, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Let's start with rugby. Good evening. Stuart Hogg says Scotland are entering one of the most hostile arenas in world rugby as they look to make it back-to-back wins in the Six Nations. Gregor Townsend's men take on Wales in Cardiff, with the host desperate to bounce back after being thrashed in Ireland. Jamie Borthwick reports.
The Wales weekend is a biennial tradition for rugby-loving Scots. And after missing out in 2020 due to the pandemic, fans are ready to make up for lost time.
Oh, my stomach's all in knots.
It's the first time we've done this in 2 years. So.
Yeah.
It's going to be excellent. Can't wait to hear the Welsh fans sing the national anthem.
For once, I hope we can do it. I think if we do it this year, we'll never do it.
Yeah, they've got a great chance. I think they could go all the way to the Grand Slam.
Confidence around the national team is at an all-time high, but a word of warning from the captain.
We're coming to one of the most hostile places in world rugby, a venue that I've told the boys this week, if you haven't been fortunate enough to play here yet, then you're going to get your eyes opened. It's one hell of an atmosphere. It's a great place to play rugby. The Welsh absolutely love supporting their teams. So yeah, it's a completely different challenge for us, but one that we're very, very much looking forward to.
By contrast, Welsh hopes of retaining their title are at a low ebb following a heavy defeat in Dublin.
You know, they're desperate to go out there and show that we are a much better team than the display we put on last week. So across the board, everybody in the camp was very disappointed with last week. We're at home, we're in front of 75,000 people, and, we owe it to ourselves and our public to put on a better display, as simple as that.
But I felt the second quarter and parts of the second half, they were equal to Ireland. They created chances. They showed that their defence can get turnovers. So yeah, we know that they'll be better for that game, and they're a top side with great players right throughout the 15.
Into the Dragon's Den goes Scotland. If it's to be a campaign that goes down in legend, they'll have to emerge unscathed. Jamie Borthwick, STV News.
Football news, and Aaron Ramsey will make his first start for Rangers as they make the trip to face League Two side Annan Athletic in the Scottish Cup. Meanwhile, Ange Postecoglou says he's demanding more from his Celtic players as they return to a near full-strength squad. Here's Ronnie Charters.
Aaron Ramsey has played in some of the biggest and best stadia in world football. But this is what awaits the midfielder when Rangers arrive in the Borders tomorrow. Galabank, home of Annan Athletic, with a capacity of just over 2,500. as the Scottish Cup 5th round begins.
Upsets are, always in cup competitions, but, when we just play our level and the way we're playing the last games, we should win the game. That's our obligation, and that's also our aim.
Alongside Ramsey, Philippe Hollander will also return to the team, his first game in 5 months. Ryan Jack will miss out but will be back next week, with Leon Balogun's injury not as bad as first feared. Over at Celtic, Ange Postecoglou says he'll be expecting a higher level from his players now the squad is almost at full strength. Yosuke Iriguchi is back in the squad for the visit of Wraith Rovers, with Josip Juranovic still out, but he'll be fine for midweek's Europa Conference League.
It kind of gives me the opportunity to really set higher sort of benchmarks for us, because the one thing now, like I said, with the competition for places, I can rotate the team. Then that means to me that certain things like our intensity, our tempo, our intent to play our football shouldn't really drop.
With the League Cup already in the Parkhead Trophy Room, Celtic will be hoping to take the next step on the road to a possible domestic treble. Ronnie Charters, STV News.
Graham Alexander admits his Motherwell side haven't yet adjusted to life without Tony Watt, but says they have the quality to do so. Watt, who scored against his former club on Wednesday night, was the league's top scorer when he left Fir Park for Dundee United last month.
Tony Watt's left. We will continue to score goals, but it's just that adjustment when someone's been a big part of your team for that year that I've been here, and then they miss. We've played around him and with him, and that's missing now. Now we have to adjust to him not being there. That is quite a simple sort of theory, I would say, but we have to find that adjustment quickly.
Well, the Steelmen, who haven't won a game this year, face Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup tomorrow. There are all of the 5th round fixtures taking place over 3 days. Should be a cracker at Firhill, where Partick Thistle host Dundee United. Rangers game against Annan is a 5:30 kick-off. And in Paisley, St Mirren host League 2 leaders Kelty Hearts.
I don't believe they're a League 2 team. I think they could very much hold their own in the Championship with the squad of players that they have and the budget that they have available to them at that level. They should be winning their league, and I would expect them to get promoted this season, and I would also expect them to go again next season and be in the mix to get promoted out of League 1 also.
To the Winter Olympics, and curling skip Bruce Mowat says his rink are back on track after beating Norway in the 3rd round-robin match, just a few hours after losing to the USA. Team GB moved up to 3rd in the standings after their 8-3 win. The women's rink suffered their 2nd defeat of the Games, losing to South Korea. Golf news, and Robert McIntyre and Connor Syme are 4 shots off the pace following the 2nd round of the Ras Al Khaimah Classic in the United Arab Emirates. They're on 8 under par. Ryan Fox leads on 12 under. Finally, snooker news, and John Higgins is out of the Players' Championship. Last year's champion lost to Jimmy Robertson by 6 frames to 4. That's all the sport for me tonight, folks. Have a great weekend.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sport, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Now the weather, and if you've forgotten how cold it was this morning, well, Sean is going to remind you.
Now, I bet there was a few of you that were under the duvet this morning and thought, I don't want to get out because it's far too cold. Yes, it was a freezing start to the day. Temperatures -4 there, Bishopton, lows -6, -7 parts of Stirlingshire, and in eastern parts of the country, lows of -5. It's going to be a lot milder tonight, turning windy and wet and staying fairly mild through the weekend. Unsettled though, and especially unsettled midweek next week. Let's have a look.
The outlook for the day is calm and settled. TUI Blue Hotels sponsor STV Weather.
Well, all of that colder air will get swept away to the east in the next couple of hours. Milder air coming in from the west, and for many of us, a wet old evening and also rather windy as well. And you can see we hang on to that green shade through much of the weekend, so the temperatures will stay relatively higher than they've been over the last couple of days. 4 or 5 the last couple of days, about 8 or 9 Saturday and Sunday. Now we've got that rain to sweep through during tonight. Some of it will be on the heavy side, so a fairly miserable night for many of us. Rain a wee bit more showery through the central belt because we're going to have a strong southerly wind, so we get a wee bit of a rain shadow here, but quite a wet night for many of us. And temperatures by the end of the night, probably about 8 degrees, parts of the Hebrides and the west coast. Now tomorrow, if you've got some plans, it's not looking too great out there. It's still going to be quite a blustery day. Lots of showers, most frequent to start with across the Highlands, Stirlingshire, Argyll, but then spreading elsewhere through the morning and into the afternoon. So it'll be a day of blue skies, but then some dark clouds coming in and those heavy showers. Temperatures about 8 degrees Celsius, so quite a few degrees up on where we've been the last couple of days. Sunday not looking so good as well. We've got rain moving in from the south, the brightest skies across the Highlands and Perthshire to start with, but even here that rain moving in by the end of the day. Then jumping forward to Wednesday and Thursday, keeping a close eye on this deep low pressure system which is being modelled at the moment, that potentially could become our next storm. Bye bye.
TUI Blue Hotels sponsor STV Weather.
Now, it's entertained audiences across the globe, but now the award-winning theatre show Bat Out of Hell is back in Scotland.
The show brings to life the music of the late Jim Steinman and Meat Loaf and marks the first time the musical has taken to the stage since their passing. Well, Indigo Stafford headed to the Edinburgh Playhouse for a preview.
Bat Out of Hell is back, and this time the cast of the legendary musical are dedicating their performance to the memory of Jim Steinman and Meat Loaf.
This is Jim's baby. He wrote this for a musical piece before Bat Out of Hell became the rock album that everybody knows and loves.
It's so lovely that we get to now kind of keep that torch burning, because sadly, of course, Jim and Meat both passed on in the past 12 months, and so it's wonderful for us to know that this was his dream and that, you know, we get to kind of go out and do this every night.
The show tells the story of a young couple's rebellion to be together as they would do anything for love.
It's probably one of the best roller coaster rides you've ever been on, set to the most amazing rock and roll soundtrack. That's the easiest way to describe it.
Yeah, it's like a rock version of Romeo and Juliet, I would say.
5, 6, 7. Is it my arms? And just like Romeo and Juliet, Rob and Sharon have also ended up falling in love. They were brought together after playing husband and wife in the show, and now they are expecting a bat baby of their own.
I reckon it's going to come rocking out to Bat Out of Hell, I think. It's working title.
Special delivery.
Bat Baby. That's what we're calling it right now. It's been lovely. It's lovely knowing that they're also part of this journey with us, you know, and that they're kind of on the road with us. And I think it's only going to give Bat Out of Hell, the album, even more meaning in our lives now.
The show has come here just weeks after the death of a man whose songs inspired it. Indigo Stafford, STV News, Edinburgh.
And finally, you may expect to see a grey goose in the aisles of your local shop, but what about a spirited swan? Well, that's exactly what entered the shop in Port Ellen on Islay yesterday, leaving staff in something of a flap.
Can they fly? I don't know. The bird, which was not wearing a face mask, perused the aisles for a short while before departing, without having bought even as much as a box of well-known matches.
What a striking creature.
Just swanning in there, John, just swanning in there.
See what you did. From all of us, thanks for watching. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.